This episode is proudly supported by Westholme Australian Wagyu. Here's Stephen Sinclair from Jackson's on George.
In general, Westholme, I use several items on the menu from them. I always look to source products for their flavour. And with Westholme, I think they deliver that 100%. Australian Wagyu, in particular Westholme, is world class. Westholme is recognised for their quality all over the world. And then that's why, and when I tried it, and I absolutely love the flavour. This is, why I decided to put them on the menu.
Westholme believe that when nature leads, flavour follows. Learn more at westholme.com.
The stories we will hear today come from the land of the Boonwurrung people. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
We just aim to grow cool climate, maritime wines to the best of our ability to express a sense of place in our wines, and I think you can see that. You can find that distinctive cool climate Bass River or cool climate Gippsland wines have got a great sense of place associated with them.
This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale. In today's episode, we are on the Bass Coast, where idyllic coastlines, picturesque hinterlands make for popular holiday retreats. For a lucky few, it's a place to call home. Frank Butera and a family are from Bass River Winery, and he joins me today. Hi, Frank. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Shanteh. How are you?
I'm fantastic. All the better for having you to chat to this morning. Frank, tell me a little bit about where you are, where you're located, and what Bass River Winery is all about.
So we're in Gippsland. So Gippsland, larger than some small European countries, and we're on the west side of Gippsland, in line roughly with a little bit with the Mornington Peninsula, Red Hill district in that same sort of latitude. We're about 10 kilometres off the Bass Strait and Western Port Bay. So we're sort of snuck in a little western side of Gippsland in the Bass Coast Shire or Bass Coast Council. And one of 7 councils that makes up Gippsland. So Gippsland's a large region, I guess, and it's 450 kilometres wide and 200 kilometres from Bass Coast to the foothills of the Yarra. And yes, we've got this pocket of land that we've had now in the family for over 40 years. And it's nestled in at the end of the Shanteh range, just at the bottom of the Bass Hills. And we border the Bass River to our east, and we have the Grantville Nature Reserve to our north. And we sort of sit a little bit low on the land. The vineyards sort of on the river flats, I call them, but there's undulating land over the property, and we or our family decided to put some vines here.
Well, it sounds like an idyllic, beautiful place to be. Does the Bass River, and your location to it kind of, have any effect on where you are? Is it that close?
Yeah, so not necessarily the river itself, but the fact that we're about 30 to 40 metres above sea level on our property, and I think we must be one of the lowest lying vineyards in the area. And we can see that during our growing season, in that we tend to shoot a little bit later with bud burst, and we tend to harvest a little bit later, but also because of the cooling nighttime temperatures that we have over the property, we have extended hang time on our fruit. And that's great for the varietals that we've decided to grow here.
I want to hear a bit more about the beginnings of Bass River Winery, but I also want to know, it is quite a popular place for Melbourneites to kind of escape from the city. How far away is it by drive, and why is it so popular for people in the city to come out to that area?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it goes back to our beginnings, I guess. We had a holiday house on the beach in Coronet Bay, which is about 6 or 8 kilometres from our current property, and we grew up in the 70s and 80s playing on the beach as a holiday retreat, being Melbourneites. And I don't think that's sort of slowed down. I think there's been a gradual shift from to the east, and as sort of property prices in the peninsula may have been out of reach, we're finding that Bass Coast and other areas of Gippsland are becoming a lot more affordable. And there's a lot more to do. I guess we have some great surf nearby, which is, I say, what we do when we're waiting for grapes to ripen. We just go have a surf, and we have some great fishing and some great holiday attractions, and not to forget the attractions on Phillip Island with the enormous amount of people that go down to see the penguins.
Yes, indeed, and very much highlighted by the block at the moment. Who knows whether they will leave it in a better spot or a worse spot. Growing up, like you said, it was a place where you would often holiday. I think as a child, we always have these amazing memories of holiday locations. What were your childhood memories of vacations there?
Oh, so childhood memories would be just sitting on the beach, watching our little boat arrive, picking us up, going for a water ski on our really flat bay, in between watching really long tides that we get at Coronet Bay, like 500-metre long tides, and making sure that the boat doesn't remain, marooned on the sand, and it needed to wait 8 hours for the tide to come in to be able to lift the boat out of the water. But also, coconut oil and sunburn and sand and sand in your sandwiches and running amok up and down the beach with family and cousins and so on. We had quite a simple holiday house that Mum and Dad built, and it was always full of a mattress full of kids that were just there to enjoy a bit of a city escape. Sort of thing. So, and that was a lot of fun, right? And things sort of evolved, and Pat, Pasquale, my dad, and Rosa were looking to get out of the very successful property trade that they had going in Melbourne, and were searching for the next venture in their career, I guess. And Pat always had, a desire to own a fair bit own some property, and that sort of evolved to putting our first vineyard in. Now would have been the late 90s. So that's how, historically, my grandfather in southern Italy owned vineyards, and so Pat has had a desire as a childhood dream to be able to plant and nurture his own vineyard, and a lot of the learnings, I guess, have come from his ability to grow up in a vineyard and nurture vines in Italy and transpose those concepts to our Bass River property, and he still does, and he still we follow a fair bit of philosophy, I guess, on how to grow vines from his early upbringings.
Wow. What does your father kind of talk about when he first planted vines? What was he dealing with in South Gippsland? What did it look like?
Yeah, so it was the boom of the 90s, I guess, when it came to vineyards in southern Victoria, and he took some consulting advice on what varietals to grow, um, and and then basically he went out and decided to plant a vineyard to the best of our ability back then. And each block that we've planted, so we're going to be planting our fourth block this spring. But each block that we plant, we learn from, and we take over to the next one about the do's and don'ts. So there were some. It's really understanding the soil and understanding what the soil can deliver. It's understanding what assistance the soil needs to be able to grow the vines. It's understanding a fair bit of science in the soil to then nurture the vines. So yes, it was a bit of a learning exercise on the first block, but I think by the time we get to this next block, I think our technique has changed quite a bit, and and we'll continue to evolve from there. I think what some of the learnings that Pat understood, which would be different to where sort of he grew up in Calabria, would be that our soil structure is a little bit different, and it's do less with it rather than more. So, cultivating became quite a big no-no for us here, so there was that's probably the biggest message learned, I guess. And the other thing is just letting the grass grow and doing its thing under vine, which is great because now we move the sheep into the vineyard blocks over winter, and they have a great time eating grass from the end of harvest to bud burst.
Lucky sheep. Tell me a little bit more. Exactly. Paint a picture for me of your 44 hectare property, because it doesn't just have sheep and grapes. You've also got some cows out there and olives. Is that right?
Yeah. So we've on our parcel of land, we tend to. It was first a hobby farm, I guess. To the point where we sort of, we took the plunge and went into viticulture. So as a hobby farm, there was a bit of cattle, and we experimented with various types of cattle that could actually work well in this area. But it's dairy country down here. Like this is green dairy country, but not being dairy farmers, we sort of had to look elsewhere. So we played a little bit with some red poll cattle for a while, and then till we realised that the Black Angus was probably the best suited for our property, and those that cattle does really well down here, and so they graze through the other paddocks that are not used for vineyard. But we had some sheep, and we're using it for wool and meat, to the point where we thought the sheep were actually quite a benefit to the to our viticultural style, and we've increased our sheep intake now, and we've got multiple flocks, I guess, that move between blocks to graze the grasses under the vines for as long as we can keep them in there before bud burst hits.
So great! It's great to have that kind of holistic approach, but to be smart about and use those animals to your greatest advantage. And you've got olive trees there, is that right? Because I've always thought a saying should be, don't trust an Italian unless he has an olive tree.
And a lemon tree. Look, there's quite a few rows of olive trees, and there's an olive tree grove down near the river block. And initially it was used as a bit of a windbreak. And we thought that it would be clever in positioning the olive trees in close proximity to the end of rows in in the vineyard. It's now become almost every time we drive a tractor down the road, it's almost like a 3-point turn to try and work around the olive trees. But they're there. They produce a great yield every year. We press our own olive oil on site, which is sort of a bit of a labour of love. After vintage, you almost think that harvest is finished, and then all of a sudden there's another ton of olives that sort of come in to be then pressed off as well, or grinded. But the oil that's produced is just amazing. There's nothing like dipping a bit of bread in something that's just come out of the harvester or the press machine that the oil press that produces the olive oil. Yes, it's quite a delight actually to have that on site. And olives. I'm sure if you're an olive tree horticultural expert, they could be maintained a little bit better and so on. Where most of our focus is in the vineyard, and the olives just do what they do, and amazingly we sort of get fruit from them. They seem to be seasonal. You sort of tend to read the trees to see what's happening in the vineyard sometimes. And sometimes when you get great flowering for olives and our cherry, when we used to have a cherry orchard, you could see that you were going to have a great harvest in the vineyard. So we just sort of pick up those signs, around the place. If there's like cherry blossom in front of the house, when that's in full bloom, it's just a delight. You almost think you're in Japan. And you sort of just can read if those flowers then turn to fruit. We know we've got some really great conditions during flowering for the vineyard. So yeah, and you take your signals from around the property.
Amazing. Tell me, what has been a varietal champion for you in the vineyard?
So we're predominantly Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And our new block will be all Pinot Noir. And, I've taken it from some great winemaking mentors over the years who we make great Pinot Noir, but it's complexity in the Pinot Noir that actually gives it that little edge. So we currently growing 5 clones of Pinot Noir, and with the new block we'll add another 2 to that, and we grow 4 clones of Chardonnay on the property. In saying that, Pinot Noir and Chardonnay are a great combination to make sparkling, and that's another one of our wines that we really enjoy making. And we're seeing some great steps forward with the Gamay block as well. So that seems to be sort of growing from strength to strength as well. So it's now in its probably 4th year, but there's producing some pretty cool fruit.
Frank, what does it mean to carry your family legacy forward from what your father has begun?
So that's a great question, and an interesting one due to the fact that when I was at Charles Sturt, finishing off my undergrad wine science degree, lecturers would often say that don't plant a vineyard if you can't see one. And there's definitely no vineyards near us. And I suppose carrying on the legacy that Pat and Rosa and the commitment to this area and the commitment to viticulture and to explore new lands for viticulture is one that we would like to continue. We've got other blocks in the pipeline for Bass River, and we just aim to grow cool climate maritime wines to the best of our ability to express a sense of place in our wines, and I think you can see that you can find that distinctive cool climate Bass River or cool climate Gippsland wines have got a great sense of place associated with them.
Well, Bass River Winery is certainly a successful operation, but it's really one that has so much family values and heart to it. And you can see that in kind of the way that you talk about wine, the way you interact with people when you're sharing your wines. And I think it sounds like such a special place. As soon as I started looking and researching more about your wines, I thought, God, I have to get down there. That just sounds like a place I need to be, and to taste some delicious olive oil, because it's sending me broke trying to buy any at the moment. So there's another reason to get down there.
Yeah, it's amazing the price of olive oil at the moment. Anyway, yeah.
Frank, it's been such a delight. I always love chatting to you. Thanks so much for spending some time with me.
Thanks, Shanteh.
The vast land of Gippsland has everything you could ever want in your glass, and yet the diverse municipalities have their own identity and culture. It's a wondrous land you just have to taste and see to believe. But be warned, you might never want to leave. Visit winegippsland.com to find out more. This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale.